When times are tough
The world is about to end?
and the world looks bleak,
It was impossible.
there is only one man who can save us from ourselves.
The one thing you know when you're born is that you will die.
This is Howard Bloom Saves the Universe,
I believe they believe it, even though I find it very hard to believe that they believe it.
with noted author, speaker, and philosopher Howard Bloom.
Attention is the oxygen of the human soul.
And now, here's Howard and our MC, Chad Dugatz.
Hello and welcome to Howard Bloom Saves the Universe with Howard Bloom. I am Chad Dugatz. Hello, Howard.
And I am Howard Bloom.
And your shirts are on the long sleeve version with your name on them
Yes, that's right.
in the bold print written
Yes,
across
I'm wearing
the
my
chest.
long arms today, as opposed to my short arms, which I wear during the summer.
Exactly. How are things going? Happy post-Thanksgiving
Yes,
to you.
Hopi happy post, Hopi past Thanksgiving too.
Yes.
Well, things we have a new Korean rocket.
Yes.
and it's been quite an astonishment. It's a good deal more than we've been told.
Let's talk about it.
Well, we all know that this Korean rocket went up, and we were told that it can reach absolutely any city in North America with a nuclear warhead, and that is true. It's a rocket that can carry 2,200 pounds. That's a nice load.
Yeah.
To any city in North America, but it's a lot more than that. The rockets. Korea set off two Hwasong 14 rockets in July, and that seemed to be the top of the line for them. And the Hwasong 14 had one giant main engine and four tiny little engines that helped course correction and accuracy. The new rocket doesn't have one engine, it has two main engines. And instead of the little tiny rockets for course correction and accuracy, it gimbals its motors. In other words, it redirects the entire rocket blast, which is something much more sophisticated. So it's a giant step over the previous rocket. And what nobody in North America seems to realize is that the new rocket, the Hwasong 15, was launched on Wednesday of last week. On Tuesday, the North Koreans assembled a space science symposium for the peaceful use and conquest of space. In other words, they assembled a symposium of all their top space experts from a university, a major technical college, a whole bunch of other places in North Korea, knowing that the next day they would be launching a rocket that would make their pretense to space, their ambitions for space, very obvious. And what it would do possibly is something else. We've been wondering whether Kim Jong-un is trying to set off World War III. No, he is trying to set up a preemptive, or he's trying to set up a military force, specifically a nuclear force, that makes it impossible for the United States to try to take him out or to take North Korea out. He's trying to set up a deterrence. And what the space conference indicates is he wants to establish North Korea as a normal nuclear power and a normal space power.
Is that a crazy dream?
No, it's not at all a crazy dream. Look what the guy has accomplished between July and now.
But for a country that's so broke, I mean, is this something that they can actually even afford doing?
They've done it. They are affording to do it.
So let's then define what you mean by a space program. Because I hear space program, I think Apollo missions and on, man in space, being in space, and not only being in space, but the safe return to space, which is almost as hard, if not harder, than launching somebody into space. So what do you mean by space program?
We don't know what Kim Jong-un has in mind as a space program, but we do know that he hailed this rocket launch as establishing North Korea on a whole new footing when it came to international stature. And he's right. If we have to take North Korea seriously as a nuclear power, then North Korea is no longer the hermit kingdom. It's no longer the turtle with its head under its shell. It's no longer a tiny little place where people are starving. It's a force to be reckoned with.
For the nuclear. And this new bomb you were telling me about can hold a ton on it.
Well, not only can it hold
Missile, I should say.
2,200 pounds, that means it can hold a nuclear warhead, and it can hold the decoys that it needs to distract our missile defense capabilities. And frankly, our missile defense capabilities are not that great. We have a hard time targeting an incoming missile. We've had hard times targeting incoming missiles, even when we've known in advance, since we've been sending them in ourselves for target practice, even when we've known when and where they're going to come in.
Right.
And when an enemy is attacking you, you have no idea of when and where
yes.
they're going to come from. I think we've talked in a previous episode about the fact that we have all these lickety-split high technology, peek over the horizon radars to detect incoming missiles. But guess where they all are? They're all in Alaska. They're all looking over the North Pole. How many poles does this Earth have? Do you remember from first or second grade?
Only 2.
That's right, 2. Okay, so we've got one covered. What does that mean about the other one?
Right.
It's not covered, not at all. And you can just as easily go over the South Pole
as going over the North.
Yes, as going over the North Pole. So we're just not equipped for that at all. We're caught with our pants down. And you expect to be caught with your pants down with Donald Trump as president, because the man has he has the intelligence level of an ox patty. An ox
you're not wrong. I
feces.
mean, I'm laughing, but
Right.
we know this.
Right. But you arrive at points like being able to launch a 2-main engine heavy-duty ICBM like the one that the North Koreans have launched, or being able to defend against missiles like that through multi-generational processes, through many administration processes. And Ronald Reagan wanted to set up a missile defense. Some people think that he was bluffing. Some people think
that's right. At the time, they thought he was full of shit.
Right, and they thought that he was doing it in order to basically bankrupt the Soviet Union, which he maybe, which we somehow succeeded in doing. Well, the fact is now we need to really contemplate a missile defense, because guess who North Korea's real partner is in missile and nuclear development?
It's their friends to the north.
It's Iran.
Oh, is it? I thought it was
Yes,
China.
it's Iran.
That makes sense.
Iran helped bankroll the North Korean nuclear program in the late 1980s and the early 1990s. It got all of its missile technology originally from the North Koreans, who in turn got it from the Russians, but have done an awful lot of indigenous development since what they got from the Russians. And anything that North Korea has, Iran could have at any time that it wants. And Iran has been boasting about its space program for at least 2 years now. It's put animals up in space, turtles, a monkey, all kinds of strange animals up into space. So all of whom more.
I'm laughing at a turtle in space, but okay.
Well, but you have to admit, a turtle in space has more brains and a broader overview than Donald Trump.
Yes, well,
so
we're not fans, you and I.
Yes, right. So at any rate, this means that nuclear proliferation and missile proliferation is on the table one way or the other.
Yes.
It can't be wished out of existence. And we have a new opportunity because Elon Musk has been showing us how to manufacture rockets a lot more simply and for a lot less money, and how to manufacture rockets that can boost things into space, come back down, and boost more things into space.
Yeah, reusable rockets.
Yeah, presumably they can boost things into space that can possibly stop incoming missiles. But one way or the other, there's a new cost equation in building any rocket-based equipment, and rocket-based equipment is apparently what we'll need for anti-missile defense, that plus possibly laser technology to shoot these things out of the sky with laser beams. But one way or the other, we're going to have to get serious, and we're getting serious at a time when, guess what the Republicans are trying to do? Hollow out the budget.
Yes.
They are trying to starve Washington in order to make it fall off the face of the earth like a scab. And that's been a Republican plan since long before Donald Trump showed any serious inclinations to participate in politics. And that bill could be going through even as we speak. It was rumored to be going through last night, and approximately 2 hours ago, Mitch McConnell announced to the world that he had the votes to put it through, and it's going to starve the American government of $1.5 trillion.
And mostly the belief in why they're doing it is to appease their financiers.
Yes, to hold on to their big money backers. And yesterday, Donald Trump has been very effusive with tweets, roughly 10 tweets a day over the last couple of days, a little bit more than that. And in one tweet, he said that the North Korean missile indicates exactly, he doesn't use a big word like indicates, shows exactly why we need to put more money into the government and the military. Now, there's a hidden word there that everybody missed. Government.
Yeah.
Yes, Donald Trump, the leader of the Republican Party, said we must put more money into government, not less money.
Yeah, but do you think he even knew he was writing the word government?
Of course not.
Yeah,
Donald Trump does everything he does by automatic writing. But the fact is, something in him typed up that word. It wasn't typed for him by James Kelly. So we're in a very strange situation right now where the Republicans have what I think every normal American should regard as the biggest tax hike in history, because once they're finished giving you a new deduction of $1,400 or something like that, you're going to pay for it on the other end.
Time and time again.
Yeah, just like you had to pay if you were in Indiana for what Mike Pence, ever heard of him?
Sure.
For what Mike Pence, who was the governor of Indiana at the time, advertised as a big tax cut. And that meant other taxes went up. So you didn't get a tax cut. You just got a tax shift.
I want to come back to the whole tax thing in a minute. Let's go back to North Korea before we get off of that. So, you know, when certain countries have gotten the bomb,
right,
it forced us to become partners with them a little differently.
Right.
Could the end game for North Korea just be respect and be brought an admission to the table?
No, because North Korea desperately needs an enemy. And it has one enemy that it singles out from all the rest. In fact, it doesn't even talk about other enemies. When Kim Jong-un, when the official announcement came out from the North Korean propaganda outlet about Kim Jong-un's supervising every aspect of this missile's development and takeoff, it said that this missile is the weapon that will bring victory in the struggle with the United States imperialists. And the United States imperialists were the only enemy mentioned anywhere in that announcement. So once upon a time, the Chinese used to regard Britain as the great enemy because Britain had been the great imperialist force. But no, for North Korea, there is only one enemy, and it needs that enemy for coherence, to keep the people gathered around the knees and ankles of the great leader.
But again, the great leader, if he were to say, okay, now we're at peace, or now we're at the negotiating table with USA, wouldn't his people just say, okay?
No, they wouldn't. Because you can go through, there's all kinds of research cited in my first book, The Lucifer Principle, about this. But if you want people to stick together, you have to give them a crisis, or you have to give them the kind of ongoing crisis that's called an enemy. And it's having the United States as an enemy that allowed Fidel Castro to retain power from 1959 until he finally wasn't healthy enough to exercise power and had to hand power over to, guess who? His brother, which is the equivalent of keeping power. It was keeping power in the family.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say have an enemy. I wrote recently on my own Facebook page how the peaceful protest of one football player is considered disrespectful, but yet the retweeting and passing on of vitriolic anti-Muslim videos retweeted by our president, shining light and giving a megaphone to marginalized, far right-wing anti-Muslim hate groups in and of themselves, that's considered elevating the conversation, according to the White House.
Well, let's take a look at another kind of example of that kind. When Roy Moore, who's been accused, I believe, by 6 to 8 different women.
Yeah, the election's coming up.
Yeah, of sexual harassment of various kinds, especially sexual harassments of women under the age of 20, of girls. Um, what has the president, Donald Trump, said about Roy Moore? Well, he says he's innocent.
Yeah.
Now, presumably, that statement is based on a very basic premise of the American justice system, which is you're innocent until proven guilty, right?
Yes.
What about the case yesterday in which an illegal immigrant from Mexico was
That's right.
accused of killing one of the cutest, most adorable looking blonde 20-year-olds
Yep.
you've ever seen in your life, and the jury acquitted him? Donald Trump said that this was a travesty of justice. In other words, if you are of Mexican descent, you are automatically a rapist. You are automatically a murderer. Even if you deny that you had anything to do with that murder, even if the court acquits you, innocent until proven guilty doesn't apply to you.
Yes.
This guy, Donald Trump, was using radically different standards for Roy Moore, who has committed the sorts of things that we imagine Donald Trump has committed over and over again.
Which I'm pretty sure he might have. Yeah.
Yeah, and yet against a Mexican immigrant, he's automatically guilty. Give me a break. Police make mistakes.
I mean, the racist. It's a racist attack because he does the same thing with the football players, and the hate that he has. Here's a man who is leading by hate.
Right.
He's a man who is dividing us, our enemies.
But demagogues commonly lead by hate.
Well, it's exactly what we're saying now, because I'm making the comparison of him being no different to the leader of North Korea, that's the enemy.
Right.
Pointing out who the enemy is, and you're either with me or against me.
And keeping people tamped down, working hard, getting very little for their work, because every problem is the cause of the great enemy. The United States is responsible for your starvation. It was significant a few weeks ago that when a North Korean soldier tried to bolt and run across the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, and come to what we call freedom in the West, that he, first of all, he was shot by his fellow North Koreans. And when they were removing the bullets, they found all kinds of parasites in his body. Parasites of some kinds that they apparently had never seen before. What does that mean? The military in North Korea is the best fed group of people in the country. You would imagine that they would send their elite military to the DMZ because it's where they face off every day against Americans and against South Koreans. If this is indicative of how well-fed or poorly fed and poorly healthed their best troops are, it indicates that the country is in a truly sorry state. And how can you keep people working in a truly sorry state? You blame their deprivations on the great enemy, the United States, the North American imperialist power. And you point out that you have to keep working with your belt tightened in order to overcome, to have a victory over the looming, awful, monstrous, evil enemy power. And back to the anti-Muslim things, the three things that Donald Trump tweeted. There is a certain small validity to the things that an arch liar, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, said in defending Donald Trump. The real question with the three videos is not who posted them. It's, are they true? And there's something in Bloomology called the caption factor that we think we are looking at a picture, but we're never just looking at a picture. We are looking at a picture with the caption that tells us what we are looking at. And we believe that having read that caption, that it is true, and hence we have seen what we are told we were seeing. And I worked this out when looking at how in the Israel-Lebanon War of, I believe it was 1981, the Palestine Liberation Organization controlled all the press. They kept them in one common hotel. If those press people tried to get information from anyone other than the PLO, they were bounced. They were sent out of the country. They lost their chance at a Pulitzer Prize for covering this battle. And one day, the Palestine Liberation Organization, you might wonder what they were doing in Lebanon while they had moved from Jordan,
yes.
And the PLO handed out to the press. They handed out things constantly, press releases and pictures. And the picture they handed out was of what looked like a baby wrapped in gauze, and the only thing that was visible were the baby's eyes. And they said that this is a baby who had been burned over 95% of its body by Israeli armaments. And you had no proof that the baby was burned over 95% of its body. And you had absolutely no proof that if it had been burned, it had been burned by Israeli armaments. But that's what you thought you saw. And the belief in the power of that caption was so strong that even Ronald Reagan kept a copy of that picture on his desk. That's the power of the caption factor. So let's see, where were we on the caption factor here?
So we're talking about President Trump doing those photos.
So whether the captions are accurate makes all the difference in the world. Now, it's been said that one of the pictures was a picture of a young man beating up another young man on crutches.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the caption that Donald Trump sent out, this is a Muslim immigrant beating up on a Dutch person. Apparently, that's not true. Apparently, it's just one guy beating up on another guy in Holland someplace, and possibly even Holland is in doubt. But what about the other two videos? One is of a bunch of people in Egypt milling around on a roof. It's a video, and then throwing a person off the roof. What is the real deal on that photo? What's the truth about that or about that video? And I forget what number 3 is.
Yeah, I forget as well.
But the real question is, is there validity? Is this stuff true? Now, if the point, I'm being paid off.
No, everything's falling out of my pockets. I'm a mess on a Friday.
Chad just put a big heap of money on the desk.
Yes, all ones, Howard. I'm going to the strip club afterwards. I'm going to make it rain. Okay, you were saying.
Right. So, at any rate, because the fact is that there are atrocities taking place in the Muslim world, and they're taking place all the time, every single day.
But isn't it the president's job to calm them down, not to incite?
No, not necessarily. It is the president's, but one thing is the president's job, and that is fact check. We keep talking about the necessity of fact checking. Do not put out something just because it appeals to your baser instincts. Make sure it's true, because it was the president himself who had the word put out through whoever was his press spokesperson at the time, approximately 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, that any tweet he puts out is an official presidential statement. Well, if that's the true, then hold to the presidential standards, check your facts. You have the biggest fact-checking apparatus in the history of humanity at your fingertips.
But, I mean, maybe we have a little bit of a disagreement here, Howard. I just think as a president, to be retweeting, like, you wouldn't retweet a horrible gunshot incident on American soil to make a point where people are dying or people are getting hurt. You wouldn't do that.
Well, but remember,
he is using other people's pains to advance his own agenda.
But look at my side, your side, the left. Look at Daily Kos, or whatever, however it pronounces itself. It will tell you it's full of fake news. It will tell you that it's about to show you a video of a Republican making an absolutely outrageous mistake of some kind that indicates his evil intent. And if you actually go look at the video, in all probability, you will not see what the caption told you are seeing at all.
Yeah.
It will just be something simple and ordinary.
It's clickbait.
So each side uses the other side as an enemy.
But shouldn't we be more alarmed at the fact that our president, and he is our president,
right,
is gathering his information and his news and is reading far. I mean, the person, it's not like he's finding this on his own.
Right.
He is, whatever he's getting is somebody's putting in front of him, or he's selecting it, right?
Right.
Because he's not going to
he's selecting because nobody would make
which
those
means him on Twitter
but him.
To retweet a far right-wing propaganda piece or something that was put up as propaganda from a far right-wing asset, an organization. I mean, it's dangerous that's where he goes for his news.
It's dangerous that's where he goes for his news. And it is problematic that that's where he goes for his news. But frankly, I go ranging all over the place.
But there's a difference in the two, that you are an intellect and you want to get to what might be the middle ground.
And I try to fact check to the best of my abilities.
But for the president of the free world, and I hate that expression, but I'm going to use it.
Well, he's no longer the president of the free world. That's way behind us.
Right.
The rest of the world doesn't take him seriously. And he, just as recently as today, has said that he has returned America to greatness. Now the world respects us again.
Bullshit.
But remember, exactly. So may I quote you on that?
Yes, please.
So but remember, over the course of the last year, he has turned this country into a laughingstock. He has lost us our position of leadership. He has told us that that Barack Obama was weak and he is strong, and he has emphasized to us over and over again until the last few weeks that people like North Korea wouldn't dare put up a missile that can reach American cities. Why? Because they know he's on the job, and they know he's tough. No, I'm sorry. They know he's a cream puff. They know that not only is he a cream puff, he's an ignorant cream puff. He's a clown of a cream puff. He can be bought for one sentence of praise. And the world isn't as stupid as the American people seem to be, or at least as 37% of the American people, the 37% who still believe slavishly in Donald Trump.
But I don't know if they believe in him as much as they believe in anarchy. I'm starting to feel like it's an anarchist movement at this point.
Well, they certainly...
Or some of that 36% is there for anarchy reasons.
Well, they certainly have operated on the assumption that if you tear down whatever it is in Washington, the swamp, the secret state, the hidden state, the inner state, whatever it is that they call it, if you tear that down, suddenly utopia will flourish all over America. Utopias do not flourish because we tear things down. Utopias flourish because we build things up. And it is painfully difficult to build things up, and it is so painfully difficult that it takes generation after generation after generation. And we are in utopia. How do we know that? Because if we were time traveled back to 30 years ago, just 30 years ago, and we were denied the opportunity to return to the present, we would feel that we were in hell. Because we'd have no cell phones, we'd have no laptops, we would have no internet. We have none of the things that we've come to rely on. And what are those things compared to 30 years ago? An unbelievable heaven. We are living in utopia now because of the progressive nature of Western civilization.
Well, can you say then that we're always going to be living in utopia?
Well, so long as we continue to progress, and so long as we're not at war, because war is hell, we're going to continue living in utopia, and it would be wise for us to wake up to that fact. Because if we operate on the assumption, the nihilist assumption of either the left or the right, that by tearing things down, we will bring utopia forth like a tulip rising in the spring, then we're simply going to tear things down and open ourselves to the kind of hideous horror that they had in China under the Marxists and in Russia under the Marxists, where a total of 94 million people died. That's hell.
Right.
So anarchists have the ability to make hell. And if we listen to analysts, we are insane. In fact, we are worse than insane. We are evil. Why? Because only the devil would willingly place all of humanity in the pit of hell. And if we listen to the anarchists and believe in what they're saying and support them, we are the devil itself.
But, I mean, we have to at least be aware of what they're saying, right?
We absolutely have to be aware of every voice of major significance that we can find on planet Earth. The reason I have so much information that you haven't been told about the rockets, in North Korea, about the space conference that the North Koreans held the day before that they started. It's not ending until December 2nd, the space conference, is because I read it. I read the Korean original propaganda outlets. And then I fact-checked the information about the engines, the guidance system, all the other stuff that the North Koreans could have been lying about, with secondary and tertiary sources, but expert sources. These are things the president should be doing because he has the staff to do it far better than I can do it. I'm one man. He has a vast team. but the man doesn't know the difference. I mean, he
Or
works on
maybe
a
he knows what the truth is, and so therefore, if he doesn't research it, he can.
he's not smart enough to know what the truth is. He believes every illusion he comes up with. Did you see what he convinced himself of this week in the land
I
of
did not
infinite
know. What's
delusion?
that?
Well, the land of infinite delusion lives in Donald Trump's skull.
Mm.
It's in between. It's in those 8 inches between the right ear and the
Left
left
ear,
ear.
yes.
And he convinced himself that the tape with Billy Bush, in
Oh,
which
yes,
he
it's
says you
fake
can,
now.
it was fake, right?
Do you know how insulting that is to every single one of us?
He has wrapped himself, he's fired people who don't give him constant ego gratification, who don't constantly praise him and tell him he's right. So right now, he has really tightly wrapped himself in his own little perceptual bubble. And that perceptual bubble consists of people who always tell him, no matter what he says, that he's right.
And when you have the wallet behind yourself, like he does, I guess he can believe it all the more.
Well, remember, he's getting Mar-a-Lago he's making a big deal about giving up on his presidential salary.
Yeah.
But look at how much money Mar-a-Lago is charging for
Yes.
his weekends. Look at how much money he charges for the use of rooms at Trump Tower
Here in
when
Manhattan.
he's in New York. Look at all the free travel. One of the clips that was played on NBC last week was of the president saying, if I get into the White House, I will never leave the White House. I won't go out on vacations like Barack Obama does. I'll be in the White House all the time. And I'll be producing so many wins for the American people that they'll get tired of winning. Well, you and I have said this before, but so far we see 0 wins. We see 0 brilliant deals. We see 0 business getting done the way a businessman gets business done. And we've seen an awful lot of rounds of golf and presidential vacationing.
A lot of golf.
And an attempt to stifle the press to keep it from saying that the president is vacationing by making photo opportunities of little teeny weeny bits of work that he does while he's out there vacationing.
There was a great Trump tweet that came out on Thursday of Thanksgiving. Now, of course, he was down in Florida. I was actually in Florida, as you know, over Thanksgiving. And he said that in Florida for turkey call, going to play a round of golf quickly, then back to more work. I mean, who the hell is he kidding?
Right.
He doesn't do anything quickly.
Right.
The man's okay. So all he is the golfer in chief.
Well,
right now.
For the first time today, serious talk has begun to come out about impeachment. And why do I say it's the first time? Because impeachment's been spoken of ever since the man was elected, even before he was sworn in as president. It's because Judge, I forget his name, Napolitano. Judge Napolitano is a right-wing, rabid critic of Barack Obama, the Democratic Party, and liberals.
Yes.
And he is a regular consultant on Fox News.
He used to have a show there, yes.
Yeah, they talk to him about everything. And today he said to Shepard Smith that the president, we could have a constitutional crisis here. And we could have a constitutional crisis because Mueller could bring up basically criminal offenses against Donald Trump.
And we should explain why. Earlier today, by the way, is Friday, December 1st. Happy Friday, Howard. 30 days left in the year.
Happy Friday.
I hope you got through your resolutions list. I know you and I don't do them. But today, Mike Flynn, former intelligence, national security guy for President Trump, did work under the Obama administration. Obama administration removed him. Trump brought him back. Obama, some holdovers from the Obama administration said you can't have this guy in your administration, and that person was resoundingly told to resign. Anyway, Michael Flynn pled guilty today to, in fact, lying to FBI.
Yeah, I don't know if you just said it, but Michael Flynn had been fired by the Obama administration.
Yes. So anyway, Michael Flynn is now facing up to 5 years in jail, and according to all accounts, is fully cooperating with the Mueller investigation, including a report in which he was told by the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, to set up some meetings with the Russians. So
no, he was unspecific about who in the administration had told him, but somebody had told him. So the speculation is that it's Donald Trump himself, possibly Jared Kushner, but as of about 4 o'clock this afternoon, we still didn't know.
But the fact that this man is working with Bob Mueller. I mean, that's got to be very telling, right?
Well, first of all, we talked about this last time, but this president, with his lack of regard for truth and his deep belief in the truthfulness of delusion, has managed to pollute some of the strongest, most admirable characters around. We've talked about the fact that I've been dealing now with lieutenant colonel level people in the military for approximately 13 years. And I have always been profoundly struck by their commitment to American values, to the values of democracy, to the civic habits that make democracy possible. They are people of an integrity that I haven't found so consistently anyplace else. And yet, the chief of staff for Donald Trump has actually gone on, and who's a general, John Kelly, or whatever his first name
Kelly,
is.
yes.
I always get it wrong. But has gone on television twice speaking to reporters. And both times he has lied.
Flat out lied.
Both times. Now, was he deliberately lying? No. He was probably giving the story as he remembers it.
I think he was giving the story that was best for him.
Well, but because I don't think so. I think he had deluded himself, because that's the example that's set at the top of the team.
Yeah.
If you can delude yourself into believing something, that's good enough. You don't have to fact check. So Kelly's problem was that he made two statements to the best of his recollection without ever fact-checking them. That, I can't tell you what a profound fall that is from the standard of expected of people in the military, even at ranks far below John Kelly. And Michael Flynn, one of the most shocking, I had to cover the presidential elections for 18 months straight for Coast to Coast.
I remember that, yeah.
It's 545 radio shows, which means I had to watch every second of every convention.
All the conversations,
Democratic
everything
convention, the
happening, sure.
Republican convention, everything. And one of the most shocking things to happen at the tawdry high school level convention that Donald Trump put on after telling us that his convention would not be like any other convention. It would absolutely defy every expectation we have of a convention. And he was talking about this as defying our levels of convention upward. No, it was downward. But one of the most shocking things was to see Michael Flynn standing in front of the assembled delegates of the Republican Party, leading a chant of "Lock her up, lock her up, lock her up."
I mean, that's just rich.
Well,
without
that
any...
goes against American due process.
Well, of course it does, but he's now the guy who's going to jail.
Yeah, well, he should.
Yes.
He should be locked up.
But
that's what he called for.
That's what he called
that's
for.
That's what he should get.
Yeah, he called for justice, and justice came for him.
We hope. I mean, the man, Donald Trump says he's a good guy. Well, we know how Donald Trump measures a good guy. A good guy is somebody who kisses my ass. A good guy is somebody who says I'm brilliant.
Yeah.
Anybody who says I'm brilliant, even if his name is Putin or Xi Jinping, he's brilliant. If he calls me brilliant, he's a good guy. But Donald Flynn, in that moment, in front of the Republican convention, Mike Flynn indicated that he is not a good guy, that there is something fundamentally flawed about him. And that seems to be what's been indicated about Kelly as well, that there is something fundamentally flawed about this man. And what does that indicate about the guy at the top? That he can bring out the fundamental flaws in people who otherwise would exercise the necessary self-discipline to put them on a higher level. They are dragged to a lower level by being around Donald Trump.
I mean, it is scary that this man is our president.
Right, and he's bringing out the worst in everybody around him.
Yeah. It's so alarming to me that people on the left and right see mental issues with this man, and yet he has the nuclear football.
Yes.
And he is criticizing another mentally deranged man. Well, we know nothing about the leader of North Korea, but yet he's quick to jump on him.
Right. And he calls him deranged.
Yeah.
And no, I'm sorry, the deranged one is in the White House. This guy in North Korea, Kim Jong-un, knows exactly what he's doing. His calculations are precisely on target. He's, in fact, if we weren't his enemy, we would be awed at what he has achieved technically. And his insight that the way you guarantee the safety of your regime and of your people is by becoming a nuclear power with the ability to deliver those nukes anywhere in the world. That insight is on target. Plus, I don't know if I've mentioned it before, I meant to, that with 2,200 pounds that you can deliver not just a nuclear missile, but all the decoys it takes to throw the paltry number of American defensive missiles off course.
Yeah, the decoys, you mentioned that.
There are only between 30 and 60 of them, and to cover the entire United States. And the rule in warfare is that a strong offense overwhelms a good defense, because a good defense is extremely costly, and a strong offense is not. In other words, if you want to attack the United States, do it with 100 missiles. If the United States has 60 missiles with which to defend itself, and if 40 of those can be thrown off course by decoys, then America only has effectively 20 missiles to stop your 100 missiles, and you're going to hit your targets.
So it's a scary time that, I don't know if you have this happen to you, but I get news alerts on my phone. I think you do too, right?
I get them on my laptop, and I'm on my laptop all day long.
This thing is addicting to me now because I'm just waiting for more dirt and more.
Really?
It's like disaster porn. Are you familiar with that expression where we want something horrible to happen?
Right.
I don't know what it's about, but I just want this thing to be over with. I want them out of the. But then what do we?
But then we're Mike Pence.
Yes.
And with Mike Pence, we have the Koch brothers running the United States of America.
Yeah.
And another scary move that happened over the course of the last week is that the Justice Department, Donald Trump hates CNN. He calls it the Clinton News Network. CNN is owned by Time Warner. AT&T has been attempting to buy Time Warner. The Justice Department has been blocking this, and the Justice Department claims that it has nothing to do with Donald Trump's hatred of CNN at all.
Of course.
Meanwhile, apparently Times magazines, the actual print magazines, Time, Sports Illustrated, In Style, they have been spun off from Time Warner. And they have been purchased by a Midwestern publishing company that owns several other national magazines, mostly women's magazines. And guess where that publishing company got $650 million of the billion that it is spending to buy Times magazines? The Koch brothers.
There you go. And you control the magazines, you control the press.
Right, exactly. So the question is, are the Koch brothers going to turn all of Times magazines into the print equivalent of Fox News, a totally captured set of organs? That's a dangerous thought, because already it's not that the right wing is denied press coverage. It owns all of talk radio. And it has Fox TV, which is the highest rated cable news station. Plus, it has the Washington Times and the Daily Caller and Breitbart. It has its own mainstream media. The RMM, the right mainstream media. Right. And if Time magazine, which has been traditionally center-left, goes center-right, the way the Wall Street Journal is center-right, the way the New York Post is center-right, because these are Rupert Murdoch publications, just like Fox TV is Rupert Murdoch, then the balance is really going to begin to shift even more dramatically than it is now. Plus, with all the jury-rigging, the gerrymandering going on, the figure is that 40% of the American population controls the majority in Congress and the Senate. 40%. Some people are deliberately underrepresented, and they include the two people at this table, you and me, because the case that the right makes is that us coastal elites, people in L.A., Seattle, New York, and Boston, and Philadelphia, and Washington, that we deserve somehow to get less of a vote than the people in middle America.
In the middle of Wyoming.
This is dangerous to democracy. So the right has swallowed a bunch of, it's like laughing gas, that has made it as delusional as the president is elected into office. I
feel as though, we're kind of on, I'm probably using the word incorrectly, and if I am, I'm sorry, Mom. I feel we're on a conflux, a meeting of all these ideas today in this exact moment where we have the Republicans trying to jam down their tax repeal.
Right.
At the same time, we're finding out just how we're finally getting confirmation behind the belief that Flynn, people in the Trump campaign did some not ethical things.
Oh, that's okay.
So I feel as though we're having a lot of things happening at one time, and it's a race to pass tax reform before the Trump administration really gets the boot.
Right. Well, let's talk about the Russians and collusion for a second, okay? There's a book called the Kremlin Playbook. It's from the Center for Strategic and International Studies, which is a very highly regarded think tank in Washington that is neither Republican nor Democrat. If anything, it leans a little bit more Republican than it does Democrat. And what it implies, what it tends to point out, is that the Russians are perfectly happy to have you as an agent, even if you don't think you're an agent. If they can simply bamboozle you into doing things the way they want you to do them, and if you can remain under the blithe illusion that you are not operating as their puppet, that you are operating on your own will, making your own decisions, that's the perfect agent for them. And who has the degree of ignorance that would allow him to function that way?
And at the same time believe that he's the center of it all, of course, our president.
Right. And when did the Russians, according to the Steele report, which looks very credible, according to the Steele report, the Russians began to cultivate Donald Trump 8 years ago because they try to cultivate every important business person who comes to Russia or who they can get their hands on here in North America on the assumption that 2 out of every 100 that they recruit, that they make into their assets, are going to rise in power.
Right. And it's not that they're rise in power, or at least have the money to do and move things and persuade people.
Right, exactly. So Donald Trump falls perfectly into the category of the dupes of the Russians who dupe themselves into believing that they are not operating, they are not doing what the Russians have asked them to do.
So where does Russia stand in the whole North Korea thing right now? Go back to the top.
Both Russia and China are asking for the same thing. They are proposing a diplomatic solution in which the Koreans freeze their nuclear program in exchange for the United States and South Korea stopping all of the military exercises that we carry out in the waters around the 2 Koreas, North Korea and South Korea. Now, if that were the deal, and if it were to go through, it would demonstrate how both Russia and China are successfully using North Korea in order to create artificial leverage over the United States. What do I mean by that? Who really wants those exercises to stop the most?
China.
China and Russia want those exercises to stop the most. And this is similar to the situation. Russia has been proposing a peaceful solution to the Syrian civil war for 5 years now. And what is that peaceful political solution?
Let them do what they need to do.
The political solution is let Assad run an election in which he elects himself and then let him stay on as the head of the country. That's been the solution, the peaceful solution the Russians have been proposing ever since the beginning of this civil war. Are they likely to get it? Absolutely. That's exactly what they're about to get.
There's a lot of scary stuff happening here. Predictions for the next week, any?
Predictions for the next week, we have to see what other shoes drop with the Russian investigation. We have to see to what extent Donald Trump is an unwitting puppet of Putin. He certainly went into office saying that he was totally in favor of being on good terms with the Russians. We have dropped the ball in the Middle East. We were the dominant power there. We are no longer the dominant power, thanks to Donald Trump, who in his own mind thinks he's restored American greatness when in fact he's made America look so small and so laughable that the Chinese are 5 years ahead of their grand plan of nursing America's decline and nursing themselves into the position as the one indispensable central power.
You know, you said something earlier in the show, and I think it's really, really important to remember. It is really easy to destroy a thing. It takes hard work to build anything. You know, on a physical manifestation of that concept, you can just look in Atlanta recently, they raised a stadium.
Right.
A football stadium that was actually built for the Olympics back in the 90s. And they raised this stadium in the matter of seconds, brought it to the ground. To build this stadium took 2 years.
Well,
And to
if you
raise it
go
takes
back to the
seconds.
beginning of conceiving of the stadium, of doing the politicking necessary, of doing the fundraising necessary, that stadium goes back more like 12 years.
Yeah. So it's amazing at how you're exactly right. How long it takes to build that, the land, everything. It is amazing how quickly something can get destroyed. Look
Right,
at you and I have had relationships and how quickly a good relationship can go bad.
right.
And what is the expression forgive but never forget? Even then those relationships will forever be tarnished. And I don't think, any other president can come in and fix all the damage that this one's created in 10 months. Let's be real, or 11 months now. The man has been president for 10 and a half months.
Right, and he says that he has accomplished more than any president in history in that time. He is absolutely convinced of that. And in fact, I watched a right-wing clip the other day from Forbes or something like that, in which the person speaking made the case that he's done more than any other president in American history in a single year.
It amazes me just the delusion these guys are under.
Well, the biggest accomplishment is turning the United States, which was taken seriously as a force everywhere in the world, into just another kickball, into just another laughingstock.
It's some scary stuff. What do you have coming up on yourself?
Oh, God.
January 10th. What do you got?
January 10th.
That's my
Yes,
sister's
January
birthday.
10th. I'm
Yes.
going to be doing an appearance for How I Accidentally Started the 60s at Central Booking Art Gallery, which is 21 Ludlow Street on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And it'll be at 7 o'clock at night. And my interviewer will be Danny Goldberg. And Danny Goldberg also has a book out about 1967.
Okay.
My book focuses around 1962. So Danny Goldberg is interviewing me. Danny Goldberg has got a book out called In Search of the Lost Chord, 1967 and the Hippie Idea. And and Danny Goldberg and I have been peculiar doppelgangers. When Danny quit at Circus, I was hired at Circus, the rock magazine. Then I was credited with creating a new magazine genre, the heavy metal magazine, because of the absolutely dramatic, radical changes I made to that magazine. Meanwhile, Danny Goldberg went over to found a public and artist relations department for Gulf and Western's 14 record companies. And then he quit that job 2 years later. Well, when he quit that job, guess who was given the job of founding a new public and artist relations
guy across
department
the
from
street?
scratch? Me.
Yes.
Then Seymour Stein, the guy who signed Madonna and the Ramones, stuck his head around the corner of my door one day in my cubicle at ABC and said, "Schmuck, if you're so smart, why don't you have your own company?" And that rankled because all I got going for me is smarts. I can't catch a baseball. I can't fish. I can't do any normal human things. And Danny said, "Well, why don't you start a PR firm on my coffee table? You can have half the coffee table, and I have an assistant. You can pay half of her salary, and you can have half of her time." And so I indeed started the Howard Bloom Organization, LTD, on Danny Goldberg's coffee table. So Danny and I have known each other for a long time and have been playing these doppelganger roles. Danny has testified before Congress. He ran Air America. He was the president of Polygram Records and the president of Atlantic Records. He discovered and built the career of Nirvana. He managed Bonnie Raitt. He managed the Allman Brothers for a while. So this is a once-in-a-lifetime dialogue. And again, it's on January 10th, 7 o'clock at the Central Booking Gallery at 21 Ludlow Street. And people who've been reading, major people in major places who've been reading How I Accidentally Started the 60s have been saying astonishing things about the book. It's not just transcendent humor. They've said that it mixes its perspectives up in ways, its views, everything going on from so many different views that you've never seen anything like it before. And one person who is the former assistant director or associate director of the Conference for Excellence in Journalism or something like that, says it establishes a new genre.
January 10th. Do check out Howard. Tell him the show sent you. Definitely check that out.
What are you doing, Chad?
I have no plans. I've been on dad duty for the past 12 days in a row.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go home and go to bed.
Uh-huh.
I am exhausted. Howard, when you walked in here today, actually saw me napping on a couch.
There was Chad laying on the couch. Yep, fast asleep.
You know, it's the farmer in me. You know, the farmer will grab a nap whenever he can, right?
Right.
And I can fall asleep really fast anywhere.
May you grow a healthy crop and get to harvest it this holiday
crop
season.
Of shit.
Right,
I don't know why I discouraged for no apparent reason, but I did. Listen, Michael Flynn, according to all accounts, is saying that it was Kushner who told him to set up meetings with everyone on the UN Council.
And you know where that authorization would have come from.
Exactly.
It comes from Donald Trump.
So I think over the next week and a half, we're going to find out a lot more about just how, if nothing else, if not illegal, how much lying the president has done to cover up what he did do in the first place.
Remember, the president never lies. First, he deludes himself. First, he convinces himself that something that didn't happen is real, like making America great again. And then he tells us what the reality is in his heart. He doesn't consciously lie. Delusion is his first step.
Right. I think he's a liar. All right, Howard. Always a pleasure. Howard, the website
is howardbloom.net.
Any radio shows coming up?
No, I never know. Yesterday they called me at something like 7 o'clock, which doesn't give me a lot of time for prep because I had to run the Space Development Steering Committee meeting last night too.
Howard's a busy man, so I thank you for coming down here.
That was my 221st appearance on Coast to Coast, 545 radio stations, the highest rated overnight talk radio show in North America.
Yeah, definitely check out Howard there. What was I going to say? Oh, Patreon. Support our show. Patreon.com. Patreon.com. Look up Howard Bloom's name. You can support the show.
And what is the name of the three people who supported us on Patreon?
I don't have it in front of us.
Oh,
but we said hello to them last time.
Right.
If you give me a second, I can find out. But you can support the show. The show is free to listen to. You already know that because you're already listening to the show. So thank you for that. But any help we do have along the way is really, really wonderful and great. We have 4 Patreons so far. I'm trying to figure out who they are. I do not have it in front of me. There. If I hit this button here, it will tell me. And they are Hassan Yalchinkaya.
Bless him.
Thank you. Stan Bend, Jacob Brinkman, and Sammy Bilto.
Oh, terrific.
So thank you all for your support of this show. Check out patreon.com.
And I appreciate Sammy Bilto's Facebook messages to me.
So you know the man.
I know him through Facebook.
I love that. And finally, we're getting on this. Howard and I have known each other now for about 2 years.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Maybe more, actually. Yes, it is definitely more. I am finally one of your Facebook friends. So thank you.
It's wonderful to have you on my Facebook page.
It took so freaking long for me to see your posts. So there's got to be a better way. Facebook has to open up that 5,000 limit.
I don't like that 5,000 limit.
All right. Well, I'm a fan and I'm a friend. So thank you. But you can watch Howard's videos. This show is available also on Howard's YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. Howard, thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
You've been listening to Howard Bloom Saves the Universe with Howard Bloom and Chad Dugatz. To learn more about Howard, visit howardbloom.net. Howard Bloom Saves the Universe is a production of Pro Media and Howard Bloom. Copyright 2015 by Howard Bloom. I'm Matt Tombs.